We are live in that thing, as we are, showing up on time. Elliot, sometimes we have some feedback, and it's like good to mute yourself when everybody else is talking. It don't always happen. I didn't hear the feedback. I was just letting you know in advance. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of When Black Women Speak. This is episode 4, to my knowledge. I can't believe we still going strong, but we are. We still going. We still doing God's work. Amen. And I think that's good. We're out here doing it. Today we have 2 special guests. We got Elliott James up top, and we'll have Ashley from Bookish Realm coming on the 1s and 2s a little bit later. Now, before we get started, I want to do a land acknowledgement. Right now, myself and Elliot both inhabit Anishinaabe and Dakota lands right now. So just wanted everyone to be mindful that you are on stolen land and educate yourself of the land that you currently inhabit and those who came before you. So now we're going to start with introductions, and then we'll get right into the questions. If anybody in the chat have questions, please put that up so I can see if I can put those up for us as additional questions. We're trying to keep this about 2 hours. It might be a little longer due to Ashley from Bookish Realm coming on the back end, but Elliot, don't feel the need to stay on longer than that time. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Elliot, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Elliott James. I use they, them pronouns. I'm an assistant professor of history, African and Black American studies, gender, women's, and sexuality studies at University of Minnesota Morris. I am happy to be here to talk Black in the workplace. I've always been Black in the workplace. Haven't always been working, but I'm working now. And I'm happy to share this space with y'all. So thank y'all for coming out and inviting me. Also, my favorite color is red.
Yes. I miss you, Elliot, in real life. I just want to see you and hug you.
Red beans and rice soon.
Oh, I'm ready for the red beans and rice. Y'all, Elliot, red beans and rice. I think the ancestor is moving through them because the way it hit with that hot sauce, hey, amen, it's doing the work. It's doing the work. Britt, on the 1s and 2s, you next?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Britt. My channel is Britt Riordan. I use she, her pronouns. I am a 5th-year doctoral candidate in Africana Studies. And my favorite color is green.
Okay, I didn't know if I was like waiting for you to tell me to go or if I could just jump in there. So I was trying to, follow protocol. That's all. Hey, everybody. I'm Cache. My channel is Shay with the Hobbies. I use she, her pronouns. So my field is IT. That's what I went to school for, and that's where I worked in my career. And my favorite color is purple. So, yeah.
Not me ain't swallowed a dumpling fast enough so we can get up on this. All right. Everybody know, if you've been on my channel before, you know I'm always eating them alive. Don't act like y'all don't know what's going on. I got a popcorn bag right here. I'm ready.
And your water bottle matches your turban. That is lovely. And Elliot's shirt, it looks like.
Listen, Elliot tried to copy me. We all know the truth.
You just call it what it is. It was on your flow.
Bree did it first.
So my name is Bree. I use she and her pronouns. My field of study is actually forensic psychology, but I do work in counseling of all sorts. I also am a cultural, a cultural program coordinator for Indigenous students, and Indigenous programs and Indigenous studies. So that is what I do. So let's go into let's just say hi to the people first, I think, and then we can jump into the questions. Saying hi to the folks. will it let me know? Oh my God, Ashley been sitting there all this time?
Yeah.
I knew I heard something. I was like, I heard it, but like nobody else was reacting. So I was like, let me go to the private chat real quick.
My bad. To be honest, I didn't know there was a scroll down feature, so that was on me. That was on me. Ashley from Bookish Realm, everybody. Ashley, can you introduce yourself? Pronouns, your field of study, and your favorite color.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley from Bookish Realm. My pronouns are she, her. The current field of study does that work? Is that what we're going with?
What you're working in,
Okay, so I'm a librarian. Library science, I guess, would be my field of study. And my favorite color is purple.
Ooh, we got 2 purples. Now we got everybody up in this thing. Amen. There was a private chat. Lord, I need to be better about this.
Come on, Bree.
I really do. I'm slipping. Are we surprised? No. Okay,
No.
Happiness Express. This is where I reside. Okay, so we're going to first start off with our first question. And if you need me to explain it more, we can go into that. And I would like everyone to answer the question. And we can do popcorn style too. So like after you're done, you can call somebody else or somebody can interject. I feel like we're all grown folks. We know how to behave. So that's what I have to say. Who would like to start first with this one?
So my atmosphere, sorry, I don't know were you about to come off mute, Elliot? I can't see anyone's mute sipples in this view. Okay. So I am in grad school, but I haven't really been in a grad school atmosphere in over a year now because we're in a hot spam sandwich. So I haven't had to go into the offices for a grip. But when I was in coursework, I'll use coursework as my workplace atmosphere. When I was in coursework, it depended on the class. Overall, as far as like race and gender, nothing very obvious and nothing gender for me, but I'm also a cis hetero woman, so maybe some things that were in play just did not apply to me and I didn't clock them. But for me, it wasn't a thing. Racially, it sort of depended on the class. So if I was in Africana class, my department is very Caribbean. I'm from Arkansas. So sometimes even within Black spaces, slick stuff gets said about like, oh, Arkansas, like don't drive down there at night. And it's like, what are you talking about right now? Like, what are we like with the South? You've never even been. Like this doesn't make sense. So, but that's not really racial. It's just more like geographical. But as far as like in Africana spaces, that's really it. But in like white spaces, it doesn't really come as much to like individual person. It comes out more in the theory, like who do you cite and who don't you cite, and do you like cite Lacan and everything, but you don't mess with Fred Moten and Saidiya Hartman? Like, who are your people? Or do you only mess with Fred Moten and Saidiya Hartman because they're like up here, but you don't know anyone else who's like more grassroots or who's maybe like a newer thinker or who maybe is in the Caribbean and they're not an American thinker, right? So it comes in the workplace atmosphere more in who you bring into the conversation, less than like the student thinkers in the room, for me. I'm supposed to call somebody. Professor, how about you?
All right, I'll take Professor Ogletree. All right. Yeah, so I work with Bree on the same campus that from 1887 to 1909 used to be a Native American boarding school. And as we know, there have been thousands of unmarked burial sites in Canada that have been unearthed by the government, by private institutions, by public institutions, and the United States hasn't started yet. So I describe where I live and work as very rural, 2.5 to 3 hours from the closest metropolitan area, with a long history of settler colonialism that rarely goes acknowledged. So the twin problems of racism and settler colonialism are embedded everywhere in the grocery store. And being a small liberal arts college professor where I live and work and have folks over for food and I'm always going to soccer games and things like that. Being the only African American faculty member at the moment is hard, especially during the pandemic. Now with this new third wave of the pandemic, not seeing my family for years, it's very, very hard. So how I'm supported is really through things like this. I'm really happy to be here, especially around so many folks who are engaged online, because I haven't really gone in that direction yet. And I think that is a really important space, at least what I'm seeing on TikTok and on YouTube, and people bringing some really important issues to the fore. It's important, especially if you need to talk to people about those things. So that's kind of my environment, trying to navigate the physical, geographical space that I'm in, and also trying to find new ways of support, community support, mutual aid support, through networks like these, and folks who I haven't met yet, but I'm excited to meet. I'm gonna call on Shay.
Okay, so I'm going to describe two different things. So being in the IT workplace, so working as like a software developer, but also as being an older graduate student. So coming back like after like 5-6 years after getting my bachelor's and working in the career, because they're both like two different experiences for me. So in the workplace, so it was like I'm always having to choose between being a woman or being Black, right? Like there's either organizations for being a woman or there's organizations for being Black, because in where I was working, I was the only Black woman there in my area. And then like 6 months in, we got another Black woman, but she worked in HR. I didn't care. She was there. We was hanging out. We was becoming best friends. Like I was talking to her all the time. When I would meet like the Black men that worked there, I'd find out they had Black wives. Hey, we friends, we hanging out. I don't care that you don't work here. I need Black women in my life type of thing. So there was always in the workplace, hold on, y'all, give me a...
The dogs are wild. Okay.
They will make regular features.
Y'all, I this is the second one I took from him. I took one before we started. He got another one. Y'all, please don't. Okay.
Please don't.
Please don't. Y'all know, get up here and like be all up here and y'all see him.
Titan.
Y'all, Titan. Of course.
Cleo be chilling. There's another one, but you won't see her.
I told y'all. See, I knew it. Hey, get down. Okay. All right. Sorry. I apologize. So when it comes to the workplace, it was always like having to choose one, because if I would try to talk about something that was going on to the Black men, they wouldn't experience it because they were Black men. And so it would be like, well, maybe you're kind of making it a bigger deal than it really is. But when I would talk to the Black women, they would get it, but they wouldn't fully be able to get it because they weren't in the field. So their interactions with people were still very different from what mine were.
Those
I'm gonna have
dogs
to
are
turn my
living their
camera
best.
off in like a second, and I apologize, y'all.
Ashley?
That was a real black mom moment. Like, excuse me, y'all, you gotta go completely black out.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna let y'all see me act.
He said
like
the internet can't witness this part of
no.
me.
I just
and
imagine, get your ass down. That's what
Oh,
I
it was definitely some cuss words, and Britt, no, I'm like trying to work on my cussing, so like I didn't need her to say nothing. So there,
Wouldn't have said a thing.
But in grad school, it was really different because there is a lot of difference generationally between millennials and Gen Z Black college students. And also, there is a difference between those of us who went straight through to grad school from undergrad versus those who went through to work and then came back to grad school. So it was a lot of like realizing, like, yo, no, I'm technically going to school with people who like, some of them just been out of high school not too long ago. So like our views and things were different. So sometimes it made it harder to like get the support, because it's like we could support each other on the like being Black in these spaces, right? Because for us in the Black Graduate Student Association, most of us were like the only Black graduate student in our program. So like I'm the only one in information assurance, she's the only one in molecular biology. So we can't even talk about the same things because we don't experience the same things. And how I would stand up to a professor in my place is not how they can stand up to a professor in their place. So it would just be like, just in these environments, realizing that there is so much more to our experiences in these professional settings than we initially realized. Like, it is great to be around Black people, but all of us being from different spaces makes it harder to like be able to relate and be able to be that shoulder. So I guess that's my workplace atmosphere thingy.
My turn.
Yeah, I figure it just like kind of goes to you. Sorry.
So I guess mine is interesting because we can look at it kind of on a larger scale, and then my specific workplace environment. So as a librarian, it is dominated by women. The field itself is dominated by women. And then more specifically, it's dominated by white women. So there are Black women that are in the field itself, but there's like pockets of us all over the country. And it's interesting because I feel like in terms of like my personal workplace environment, it's getting better. I'll put it that way. I think that my specific system is doing a lot of work right now where they are trying to make sure that they're holding up the tenets that they set forth in terms of like their or I should say they're trying to maintain the statements that they've made in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. I felt like in the beginning, especially after some conversations that happened after the murder of George Floyd last year, it was kind of tough at first because I think that what a lot of us do experience is that when you get into a room and it's a lot of white people, handful of Black people, they look to you for the answers and the solutions. And I remember being in one of those sessions and I said, like, stop asking us for the answers. If you want the answers, you got to do the work yourself. Like, because at this point, it's been too long. I'm not here to teach you. I'm not here to educate you. It is what it is. So, there are people who took that to heart and have been educating themselves. But of course, you're always going to have those who are like, I really don't care. And it's very interesting because I feel like a lot of times people think that everyone who works in libraries are extremely progressive people, and they're not at all. There are people who are, there are racist people who work in libraries. Just keeping it 100. Like, it is what it is at the end of the day. But as far as like gender affirming stuff, that's the work that I do. In addition to everything else that I do, like with my job description, a lot of stuff that's related to sexual orientation, gender identity is work that I do, and stuff that I actually was able to get a grant to go to a training for and then kind of come back and do trainings with the staff. I wish that it was something that was mandatory, but it's not. And it's unfortunate, I think, because we are a space that acknowledges or attempts to be a safe space. And in order for us, I think, to be a complete safe space, I think that everybody needs to go through that training. But everybody's not going through that training. And I kind of experienced the same thing too with Shay. Like, I have Black colleagues, but we all come from a variety of different experiences. So I think that it's easy to assume that when certain things happen, we're all on the same page. Even with stuff that happened last summer, when this conversation started happening, it was like, oh yeah, the entire Black group for the library is going to be on this, and we weren't on the same page. There were quite a few of us who kind of disagreed on some things that were happening, some things that weren't happening. But I think for the most part, my specific working environment, I feel somewhat comfortable in. I still have issues with like feeling like I have to work 10 times as hard as somebody else who makes 2-3 times as much as I do. And I know that because we're a public entity, so I can see what people make. I still feel like I have to be very mindful of how I carry myself because I work with the public. I experience a lot of microaggressions, especially depending upon what area of the county I'm in. I've experienced things like people telling me, oh my gosh, you're one of the smart ones. I've had white women tell me that, or not even to my face, which of course not. I've had white women tell my colleagues that I've intimidated and scared their children, all because I asked their children to stop running. I've had white women tell colleagues that they're never coming back because of my presence. So it's an interesting dynamic because I think there's a lot of work that is done internally, but they can't control what happens externally because we're a public entity. So I know that there's certain areas of the county that I go into. I know there's certain things I'm going to see and hear, and there's nothing that my job can do about that. But I think as a whole, librarianship has some issues, okay? And it started like even last year when ALA made a Black Lives Matter statement, and I was pissed. I was livid because they were trying to ride the fence. And we still have so many issues on a national scale when it comes to librarianship. When the whole Dr. Seuss thing happened, that was, you could see the issues that librarianship has. It's so bad, y'all, to the point that there's this group on Facebook that's called ALA Think Tank, which is for all librarians. And then there's a secret private group called We Here that we're a part of if you're a person of color. So you already know that the field itself has a lot of problems, but I think my workspace is trying to do a little bit better, if that makes sense. Yes, ALA, American Library Association. Sorry, speaking acronyms.
I was hoping I got that right.
Yeah. You got it right.
I was like, I hang around you too much.
You do, but that is right. American Library Association.
I'm going to answer this question, and then after I answer, I want to just say hi to everyone because I was supposed to do that before we went into the questions. But such is life. Mistakes were made, and we can learn from them. So moving forward, describe your. I always say I live in a sea of whiteness. I don't know if it's politically correct or what, but that is how I describe my workplace where I live. Elliot, you know, just swimming, backstrokes, front strokes, floating in a sea of whiteness. Amen. I'm talking about, I almost drowned last week. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of whiteness that is around. And I think there is just a heaviness in the air in the workplace and also in the community because I'm usually the only Black person I see unless I'm intentional of being like, hey, Elliot, can I hang out? Hey, Sharice, our other friend, can I hang out? If I don't be intentional, I don't see Black folks. And that's just the reality. I am, like Elliot said, that they are the only Black professor on campus. I'm the only Black therapist on campus, which is wonderful, said no one ever. But it's just difficult because you are living and you feel what your students are feeling, and then you also have to feel what they're feeling and going through their things, and you also get overwhelmed. Like, I tend to have more clients than my counterparts, or more needs to do things on campus, because people make the assumption because I'm Black, then I'm gonna do all these things. There's another level of being a Black woman, as Shay talked to earlier, is that I feel like a lot of times in my workplace that Black women are paid in the manner that they should be. I don't know if that's something we should talk about, but I'm just going to put it out there. And that could be difficult. A lot of people, I think, in academia associate Superwoman with a Black woman, and that is just fake news. That's not where we're at. And oftentimes I feel overwhelmed, if I'm being honest. So it's just a lot of heaviness and living in white spaces. But I am thankful for my supervisor and her really showing up and supporting me in ways that often like put tears to my eyes. So I really appreciate her and what she's done for me while I'm here. But it's really hard to find support, because I would almost wager, just saying, Elliot, correct me if I'm wrong, that the other Black folks on campus is the only Black folk in their department. I would wager that. I think I would. So it can be very difficult just existing in that. And also it can be hard because, like, when you're having a hard day and you may want to turn to your Black colleagues may not have space for that. That's the hard part. It's like, how much do you figure out on your own and like figure out other people, because your Black folks, your friends, your colleagues are also existing in this sea of whiteness. So it can be double traumatizing, right? It's like, when do we get to turn it off? And there's just no turn off button. So I hope I'm making sense on what I'm saying, because y'all, this sea of whiteness is for the birds, and I don't know how much longer I can do it, because I think I've been existing in the sea of whiteness since I was 18, and I am quite frankly over it. I did it for undergrad, I did it for graduate school, and I did it for Peace Corps. Enough is enough, and that's just where I'm sitting at. I just feel like I need to go mind my Black business with Black folks. And that's that on period. Any final thoughts before I go to the comments and start talking to folks?
I do feel like have all of us gone to a PWI? Yeah. I went through, PWI for undergrad and grad school.
It's just rough going to a PWI.
Never again.
Never again. If I have to go back to school, I won't do it. I went to PWI for all three of my degrees, I went to PWI. Never again. I'll never do it again.
Never, ever.
It's just really garbage.
It's a tough experience.
It's just not giving. You know, I know all institutions have its own things going on. I didn't spell institutions right, so don't come for me in the comments. I am who I am. But I'm just saying that, you know, your girl didn't spell it right. But there's just something about going to a PWI that just don't fit right in my spirit of spirits as a person who's already went through it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go in the comments. We got Shamala in the comments. We got literary lady one in the comments. We got Becca. We have Nicole. We have Deanna. We have B. We have Bethany. Was I about to stroll past one girl, Deidre? I am so sorry. Hey, Deidre. She's going to come for me in a text. Don't do it. We got Tammy in here. We got a bunch of other people who are not commenting. Welcome. Welcome people on the replay. We got Humble Dom, and then we have Chloe. Am I missing anybody, y'all?
Salter just came in.
Salter just came through the door. I was like, where is Salter? No, I'm just kidding. Present on the lurk. I get it. So
This, that. Where the black people at? Where the black people at? Like everywhere. Welcome Black Week was my favorite week of the year.
Wow, there was a Welcome Black Week?
Yeah. So like we'd have a Welcome Black barbecue the Sunday before school started, and then every day of the week there'd be a different event. Yeah,
we did the same thing too.
Oh, yeah. Why is that not on this campus?
Y'all better start it, man. Like we have what's called our BSO, which is Black Student Orientation. So it's like a big event at the in the first month of school where all the Black organizations present. So you know what all is there on campus. So you get to see the organizations, you see who their exec board and everything is. So yep.
We did the same
Imagine
thing.
my surprise coming to grad school and finding out everybody in BGSA was a part of undergrad at OSU and knew none of this. And I was like, no wonder y'all hated y'all undergrad experience. Y'all didn't go to nothing.
Man, I know nothing about this. I know, and I think if I had to compare my undergraduate and my graduate school experience, I'm going to say my graduate school experience was the worst, because the amount of just ignorance that existed was just beyond me. And I was like, how is ignorance to this level existing on a graduate school level? And listen, it did. And it was really hard too, because the school I went to, University of Denver, pretty much a bunch of rich white kids go there. It's a private school. So people would make statements that is like, they just had a lot of problems. It was problematic. So I felt that for me, that my graduate experience was just, if we had to say what was worse, that one was a little bit more.
Grad school was definitely worse for me too. Definitely worse.
Yeah.
I think. Go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, you saw my mouth.
Well, I saw you took an inhale. This is your second time inhaling and then exhaling in silence. So I'm like,
Stop watching me like that. Not you said this is your second time taking a deep breath. For me, it was kind of the same thing. So we had AAAS, was the Association of African American Students, which kind of did the same thing. But also for me, pledging helped a lot. Helped me find my Black spaces. But I think the difficulty was that going to PWI in the South, in the Bible Belt, that, even with my Black spaces, I mean, it was just, and then I was a history major in undergrad. There wasn't a lot of me in the classroom already. You know what I'm saying? So socially, I think I did fine, and I enjoyed the social aspects, but dealing with some of the academic things that were happening and going to a PWI that was in the Deep South, where you have a lot of rich white kids, going to school. I remember one time we had, I think the Qs in the campus had gotten to a scuffle, whatever. And the director of student affairs was quoted in the student newspaper as saying, back in the day, we would have just turned the hose on them. So stuff like that, you could be like, you find your Black spaces, but you just, the amount of crap, like there was a noose that someone hung up on the AAAS tree that we have. Like, just so stuff like that, it taints the experience, which should have been great, finding, your safe spaces in the Black community. But everywhere we turn, I felt like somebody was trying to ruin it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think that so I would also say that graduate school way worse than undergrad, and part of that is because undergraduates are protected. So on a university, there are way more programs, there are way more intervention services for undergrads than grads, because you're adults and they are still children. Even if they're 18, 19, 21, they're going to be more protected, especially if it's at a PWI, because the assumption is you don't want their parents calling and making a fuss. So they are just a protected species in comparison to graduate students who are sort of an afterthought a lot of the time. And then there was also a news incident at my school. I went to Rhodes College, also in the Deep South, Memphis, Tennessee. So, the argument was the student didn't know what it meant, and that he was playing a prank on his white male roommate. There's just no way, as close as Memphis is to the Klan, for you to not know what it means to hang a red-tipped monkey from a noose at high noon on a Friday. But he was allowed to stay on campus because he didn't know any better. Even though he had a Black history professor, who I know did a section on lynching in his intro. So it was just like that sort of stuff where, yes, like Ashley said, you can find your spaces. And I also went through the membership intake process. I'm an AKA, so that helped. But that doesn't, when you find Black spaces, you are finding Black spaces within a white space, and you are the pressure of the white space trying to infiltrate constantly doesn't go away. Yes, it was great going to events on having events on other campuses and having events on our own campus and et cetera, but that didn't stop that news from being hung, and it didn't stop other things that happen. It didn't stop things that happen with BSA, like Black Student Association. So it's just like you can find your spaces, but there's a feeling of vulnerability to that you have found something that you are glad is there, but that it can be tainted, it can be infiltrated, that it can be messed with much easier than white spaces who no one even thinks to mess with them, because why? That's innocent. Y'all are the ones trying to be different, and it's X and X and X and X, and so it's like a target on your back almost.
It's the caucasity.
Always that full throttle.
The caucasity, it's like, in what world, of what part of the United States history that you missed the lesson that a monkey hanging from a noose was problematic? Like,
exactly.
What part of the history did you miss? You could have been hanging out under a rock and still understood that. Anyway, Elliot, I saw you going to the button. Speak your truth.
Yeah, it's I always say that, I'm appreciative of the experience that I had in college, but no one should have my experience in college. All of those incidents, very familiar. And we had Black House or Williams House or Freedom House, which was a African diaspora theme house. And we had a block party, and we had block parties. We had the best parties on campus. We were right across from Asia House, next to La Casa del Sol. We had our little area, and we came together, and it was great. But you still had these incidents. And, no one should have to go through that. Like, why does that have to happen? I don't have a lot of faith in a lot of our Minnesota institutions. I came to Minnesota from New York City. This is back when I really didn't appreciate, the history lessons that I got from people on my neighborhood, on my block. I always felt that, there's something more that I needed to see in the world. And, I took a flight to Minnesota with my mom, and I see all these incidents. So I'm like, why? Yes, I learned a lot from that experience, but I shouldn't have to go through that experience. I think there was someone in the chat that was talking about churches and hair places. Like, that is absolutely important. That's what my Black advisees, that's the first question that my Black advisees will ask me is, where can I go get a haircut? Like I'm wearing this hat today because I can't get to my person in the Twin Cities, who's 3 hours away because, I have to work here and there's nobody here that does my hair. That's all real. Shouldn't have to go through that. It happens. Graduate school was a little bit better because I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul. But, this is a post 9/11 world where there's a lot of anti-Black Islamophobia that we would see in policies, in the police blotters, and things that were just, unacceptable. So, I'm pretty fed up with so many spaces. I mean, that's part of the reason why I wanted to study in South Africa, but then they got something on that, then that's another kind of issue, right? Because you begin to see the racisms that Afro-diasporic people see with African American people in these really complex global spaces. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. But at the same time, we did have those houses. I do like to keep a nice home space and to invite people, through. That's all I have to say about that. But that's kind of where I'm at, where we are in this conversation. There's more that I can say, but, I don't want to overtake, so.
Also, speak your truth. 2, the therapist is coming out of me. You can appreciate those houses and also think the system is trash. Both of those things can exist at the same goddamn time.
100%.
I want to get to the chat because I saw it booming. I was really into the popcorn. It was in the side of the eye. So I'm gonna get to it. Let's go to Salter. We already talked about that. My school didn't have a welcome week, but my sisters did. They even sent invites to freshmen before school started. Wow. That's dope. It's interesting to see that universities are assumed to be white spaces, while community colleges seem to be BIPOC spaces. Huh.
I think that also depends on where you are, because it's not true for Oklahoma at all.
Yeah, it's not true here either.
Yeah, because I went
from Milwaukee. It's true from Milwaukee.
Yeah, because I started out my freshman year at a private university in Tulsa. And so, like, we talked about Bible Belt. I grew up in the buckle of the Bible Belt. So, like, our rival was Oral Roberts University. So, like, that kind of tells you exactly, like, where I grew up, like, wise. And I didn't realize, like, I think I knew boarding schools were a thing, but I didn't really know boarding schools were a thing. So, like, my freshman year, I was meeting people who had only ever went to school with all boys all 12 years. And in my head, I was like, that's a thing in America? Like, not really understanding the difference that wealth brings for the education possibilities you have. So I couldn't do it. I was too hood for that. Got into too many altercations. Was like, let me go somewhere else. So I went to a 2-year school that we have here in Oklahoma, where our 2-year schools, some of them you can actually live on campus. So I got to have an off-campus experience while still getting an associate's degree. And that was by large, predominantly white institution, so bad that we had N-word incidents on campus face-to-face. And I was the one who got in trouble, not the person that was saying it, because it's freedom of speech. So that's why, I feel like it really depends on where you are, because here, like, the only place where you wouldn't really be that is if you went to Langston, which is a HBCU, or like Bacone, which is like, Bacone, or there's another one, and that's because they're both like athletic schools. So they'd be where, like, if you graduated from high school but your grades weren't enough, you'd go to this school to play football for them to transfer to a D1.
Okay. Went to a PWI. They had a Black student union and a Black community services. center. I just don't understand y'all having access to centers. Because there ain't no center on this. We have a Black student union, but we ain't got no center. That's hideous that happened to your peers, Ashley. Man, I remember my university was going into a program that made train transportation free for students during the semesters. That was the first one. It's just that students had to pay extra $20, and there were parents complaining about that ish. I'm like, y'all are really complaining about $20. Just dropped off baby sis at college. My parents made a point to introduce her to Black family friends who will keep an eye on her. Sometimes the community is extensive. Oh yeah, I was in the Northeast at a state school in Philly, had a deep presence on our campus, kept the white folks quiet on campus. They were loud on the alumni what is that? Facebook page. What am I, 70? Facebook page last summer though. At PWI's Black Frat Share, an on-campus multi blah blah student center, and the white Greek blah, 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 and the white Greek life orgs have off-campus houses they own worth millions. Yet Black athletes bring in billions. I just don't understand why they don't pay athletes.
Listen,
I'm so glad they passed that they do now. I am so glad that they have to pay.
Oh my gosh.
That was one of the best things that could ever happen. I'm like, yes, finally.
It's a wild situation, especially I went to the biggest university in my state, and it was strange having to, because I was a part of a Black Greek letter organization, ended up being VP of NPHC, and then so I had to help with what is called Rush. And it's in the whole dynamic of them having these houses that are like, I mean, mansions essentially. Like we have a Greek village, like on their campus, there is a Greek village. And I mean, house after house after house after house after house. And there was no way, like the only people who had anything on our campus were the alphas, and they had an alpha hall, which was just, they all just got a room assigned in one dorm building. I mean, a hall in a dorm building. But other than that, like we never saw that. But then with I know that our athletes were bringing in money. I mean, we're in the SEC. So our boys were bringing in money. And they never paid them. They never paid them whatsoever. And they would do stuff. I used to work for the enrichment center for the athletes. They would force these Black men to major in sociology. They weren't allowed to major in anything else because they said it was too hard for them to major in anything else. They would intentionally get them easy professors and give them answers to quiz and tests. I mean, essentially setting them up for failure, knowing that the majority of these men were not going to make it to the NFL. None, like, I mean, I can count on my hand the number of them that made it to the NFL when I was in school. They would set them up for failure. So when they graduated, tried to go to the draft, didn't make it, what were they going to do with the sociology degree? Because they weren't going to go to grad school. Because at that point, they really hadn't gotten education because everything had been given to them so the university could continue to make money. Whereas you saw like the soccer team and the swim team were able to like major in biology and major in this and major in that. But the football players, not allowed to major in anything outside of like sociology.
Totally the same. Totally the same. So I went to a Big 12 school, completely the same. Like I was a tutor, and like just the way they control how you can even interact with athletes. Like if you're a tutor for an athlete, you have to sign a contract that you will not be a friend to them. Like there's just so many different things that they do to like keep them away from people and being able to do more. Like I think outside of like sociology, most people I know that were athletes did kinesiology. like something to do with where they could still work in sports, like medicine sometimes, but not ever get to the like doctoral or the physical therapist level. And so it would always be frustrating because I worked in financial aid. So like I would hear all the arguments about, but they get to go to school for free. Well, first of all, you don't know what that school education they get is. And they bring in more money to this school than you with your degree will ever bring in, period. Like it's just a fact. And just the disparities in how that would happen and what would be was just, it was a lot. And to see how many like the conversation that Ashley is saying about, like, they don't talk about how many never make it to the NFL, how many never even get to the combine to try out. Like, it's a very rare thing. And so when you're like, well, we're giving them a free education, but you're not though. Mm-hmm. Like, you're controlling what they can learn. You're controlling how they can learn. Because even if they did want to major and you did somehow let them major, they're going to miss so many classes of that degree, they're not going to get it. And then you have professors who are trying to be tenured who, instead of actually grading people's stuff, will just pass the class because their tenure goes off of how many people get A's, how many people get B's, how many people get C's. So then they're curbing people that they really shouldn't curb. And like, these are things that we deal with on top of when we do graduate with our degree, getting into our career, and oh, well, they just gave you your degree, or you didn't have to work as hard for yours, or it doesn't mean as much. And it's like, well, whose fault is this? Like, you're putting us in a system that is telling us that we can't do and is giving us less. But when we do whatever it is that we give them, now all of a sudden it's our fault that they listen. That's on y'all.
It would be a hard pivot, but I don't know what your experience with grading has been, Professor James, but I'm already just in my institution get pressure from, so when I was TAing and I had grading responsibilities, we get pressure from professors to be like, why is that, like, the student might push back if you give them a C, which, like, I'm fine for students advocating for themselves to a point, but also, and this is just me being 100% honest, call me classist if you want, you have a certificate, a diploma from high school. You don't have any qualifications to grade yourself, or you wouldn't be here. So you can ask me to explain the feedback if you don't understand my carefully thought out feedback that I've already given you. But to push back against it, push where? Because what I know is that you're not doing that to white professors, to white male professors, and to older white male professors who fit what professoriate looks like to you. But to a young Black advanced doctoral candidate graduate student, you'll push back all day. Well, I don't know why, and it's just hard to accept, and that, like, all of these things. And so then you give, for me, I'm like, I feel ethically bound to give you the true grade, because you wouldn't be acting like this if everyone else hadn't been lying to you. You are not an A writer, and that's fine. But now, because everyone's been telling that you're having an existential crisis, when I'm like, oh no, this is a C. And if I curb it, it'll be a low B. Like, that's it. But they have a crisis now because they've never been told that truth. But then the other thing is, I will get that blowback on student evaluations, 100%. Oh, she was just like, her expectations were too high. She was kind of intimidating. I didn't feel like I could ask her any questions. And so now I feel this pressure to do some sort of song and dance to mammy you, because what you're asking me to do is overcompensate for me being first Black and then a Black woman who is also, like, in charge of you. And so you want me to compensate by that by being overly nurturing and how are you, or let's figure out together and da. But you don't need that from white men, let alone if they're older. If they push you, then they really challenged me, and I really appreciated that. But if I do it, complete opposite. So that's just sort of an addendum to the athlete thing. I am sure those professors are receiving pressure to give them that grade. And I'm sure there have been plenty of backroom conversations with professors who are like, this is not an A, who were pulled aside and told, you better put that on that paper, move along. Like, professors receive their own sort of pressure on the grading side to fall in line with the interests of the university. And as employees of the university, that you undeniably have a sort of vested interest in the university's agenda. Not that you actively want it, but that they have power over your paycheck. So you have an interest in securing that. And so in some ways, your goals align, even if it's I'm walking as far as my paycheck takes me, but I still have to walk.
I would just like to say it's the caucasity for me, because I don't know how many people on this screen felt capable enough to be able to argue about a grade that you got with a professor when you were in undergrad. Because I'm going to be honest, it took quite a while, and it legitimately took me having phonographic, all kind of proof to be able to be like, nah, look, she lying. We need to fix this. Because if I didn't have the proof, do I think it would have went through? No. If I didn't have video evidence, do I think I would have got hurt? No. And so just to even think about like how other people are equipped to be able to feel like they can advocate for themselves and we don't, then to be put in positions where we have to teach students who treat us in ways that we would have never treated a professor ourselves. That's a whole nother conversation of what we have to deal with in our places, right?
Yep. 100% got called Brit twice in a small class. One was Hey Brit, which I was like, I'm sorry. Do I know you?
At 8 o'clock at night? I can't even hear y'all. Is that for real? At this time? Sir! Why not? At 8 o'clock? You couldn't pick no other goddamn time to trim the leaves? You thought at 8 p.m.? That was, I mean, he's out there. He's going. It's an attack. I feel attacked. Anyway, I'm just pissed about it because I didn't hear anything y'all said. And I just really feel like that was anti-blackness. Somebody had to say it. It was anti-blackness. He knew we were doing in here at this point, right? Anyway, Elliot, I saw you going for the note. If you want to do a against Brits.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I haven't had that exact experience except for the evaluations. However, when I was in graduate school, I was studying a bunch of African languages, and there was a African language summer institute, and I was learning Xhosa in University of Illinois, and the classroom, it was a summer class, and it was completely interesting, right? So there was like 5 football players who were there, I think, because their coach told them to take the class, or I don't know. They thought there was going to be some understanding, but they all took it together, and I was just like, cool. You know, there's more Black folks in my class, and mind you, these are African languages where the courses are predominantly white, and the professor was South African, Xhosa speaking, and there was a huge kind of scuffle in the middle of the class where the professor was saying to the students that they need to like pay attention, so and so, and the players were like, you know, we don't have to listen. I don't know, all this thing. There were these tensions, but what began to like go up the food chain was there was a white student, graduate student, who said that the course was a hostile environment for her, because she learns languages like French and Spanish in one way, but the ways that the professor is teaching, you know, is not the way she learns, you know, European languages, which I'm just kind of like, well, you know, different epistemologies, different languages, like, what are you doing? And this was at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I don't want to put them on blast, but, you know, they've done a lot of shady things. And, you know, it was such a complicated and problematic kind of situation. But what was astounding to me is that the only voice that got heard within the entire experience was this one kind of white, graduate student who had a problem. That's just, I don't know, that's just kind of an experience that I'm kind of still trying to wrestle with. In my experience, however, and this is probably, my women of color colleagues, get a lot of pressure to raise their evaluation, their teaching evaluations. And the idea to tell a woman of color, PhD, that a high school diploma person, can offer, better ways to lead a seminar on race is preposterous to me. But that is to kind of go to kind of, Britt, may I call you Britt? Britt's point, they treat us differently. And, as a graduate student, I think one of the points that was made earlier is that undergrads are treated, like, golden coins. Graduate students are treated like exploited labor. So
treated like and are like, that is the reality. You will do what we need you to do. Y'all are the grunts.
Exactly, because your dental is on the line, your health insurance is on the line. You're going to need that stipend. Do you want to apply for that summer fellowship? Do you want a letter? It's very, very rough for graduate students. I don't know, but anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
Caucasity never cease to amaze me in any way to put it. And as a person who gets called a polyglot, and I'm not a polyglot, I like to think I'm a baby polyglot, but not really a polyglot. You need to understand the history of languages. What did you say?
Where you continue, I did not know what that word you just said
was.
Oh,
polyglot, a person who speaks more than like 3 languages. And I've studied French, I've studied German, I've studied Spanish, I've studied Russian, I've studied Ukrainian, I've studied Swahili. When you're going to approach a language, you have to work from their grammatic system, from the way in which culture is infused in their language. So for you to feel like an African language is hostile, it's because you are approaching it with your white European-centric lens, and you need to get your shit together. Now that was the end of my TED Talk. But you hear these people? I can't be the only one hearing these people. I mean, this man is in the dark. The dark. It's just something about, I want to go say something to him. But I feel like he might run me over. Because, in the dark, I kind of blend in sometimes. And I ain't trying to get hit. Lord. I can't stand him. Anyway, let me continue. Second question. We're coming at 1 hour and 2.
Bree, you looked over your shoulder like someone had run up on you physically, like they were beside you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear it as loud as I can, but when it starts, I can't hear anything y'all say. Not a word. Not a word. Okay. Anyway, the struggle. Hold on. I mean, they're really going. Okay, so we got Jesus fix it. Okay, second question. We're rolling into 1 hour and 3 minutes. Loving the chat so far and everybody, being vulnerable. Also want to recognize that even speaking about this can be like a lot. It's a lot, and we in mixed company. You know what I mean? So it can be a lot. So I just want to recognize that and thank y'all for putting your bodies on the line here on the chat. just dying at me. What to do with being felt what do you do when you feel invisible in the workplace? I like to call in black. Next person.
What did you just say?
I was gonna say as somebody who has went like through their career or whatnot. I know this is gonna be hard to accept, but leave. Like, if you feel invisible, I don't believe you should stay there. I'm just being perfectly honest, because in my experience, from not only like what I've been through, but watching what other people go through, you can't make other people see you. Either they see you or they don't. And if they don't see you, then you need to move around to where you are seen. But like, that's just me, because the stress of trying to make yourself visible and trying to take up space with people who are determined to not give you that space is going to wear on you. And my health got so bad that my brain simulated a stroke, meaning that I did not have one, but my brain made my body think that I had one. And living in places where you are working and you are invisible take a toll on your mental health that sometimes you don't see till months down the line. And we can act like mental health is not as big of a deal, but if your mental health is wrong, your physical health is going to be wrong, your life is going to be wrong. Like, I know most of us on here talk about mental health very like extensively, and I don't even know Elliot, but I know they have to, because they're Black in academia. So like, I'm just saying that, like, if you feel invisible, start making whatever steps you can to leave that space. Like, I know it's not easy. I know it's gonna take a while. I know that you're gonna have to make a plan to escape that place, but start working on that plan is my advice.
I just feel like that is this. What am I trying to say? I feel like that is solid advice. Because I feel like you're going to get to a point in your life, and I don't know if it's the 30s for me. Maybe we should talk about age a little bit. The 30s, the amount of shits I have to give has come down to a minute amount, which means that there's almost nothing left there. And if I'm due giving a rat's ass, it's because there's a reason behind it. But the amount that I have left in my jar is just depleting as I age. And I just really have to spend time and reflect on what I put my energy into, because stress can lead to cancer, can lead to heart disease. It can lead to a bunch of stuff that's already targeting Black folks. So I just feel like I have to just be more gentle with myself and be more intentional in the space in which I habitat, in the space in which I allow other people to inhabit with me. So it's just a lot to think about holistically, because, some of these space ain't loyal. That's just what it is, and don't give a shit about us. So when we die, it's still gonna be rolling. So take your sick time, your vacation time, and mind your Black business, and thrive on from that.
No, Britt, no. You go first this time. I'm gonna mute myself back.
No. I just said so much, Ashley. Are we gonna? No. I'm not gonna have this mute standoff with you, so I'll do as I'm told. I do that every once in a while. You're welcome. Shay can tell you I have a bias towards Black women. I'm like, oh, what did she? Yeah, sure. Okay, I guess that's right. You know, she was. Have y'all seen that TikTok where it's like, I stole money? It's like, but like, how much? It was like $10,000. Well, that's really their fault. I mean, if you don't want to steal it, lock it up. Like, that's me with Black women. I'm just like, I don't know. It's probably not her fault. Did you check? My screen is like wigging right now. Can y'all still hear me? Am I like flickering? Okay, cool. Because y'all all just did like the hokey pokey all around my screen. And I was like, am I the only one seeing this matrix right now? But I am, so it's fine. But yeah, so I'll do what you told me to do. What I was gonna say was definitely 1000%. Yes, to that ship will keep rolling over your live body, let alone your dead body, because there's this article, and I'll find it and put it in the chat, but it's called "The Issue of Salvation" by Maisha Priest. It's an 8-page article, and it literally just like, it shook my soul, because before I switched my dissertation to slave legacies in Black women science fiction and fantasy, I was looking at representation of psychic fugitivity in domestic spaces for Black women within postmodern fiction for Black women. That was too heavy. It was because I was doing that during summer 2020. I was like, can't do it. Cannot be reading The Color Purple 5,000 times. Cannot be reading Women of Brewster Place 5,000. It's too much. But in the article, Maisha Priest was saying the average like lifespan for Black women in America is like 70 to 80, and in academia it's like 50 to 60. Is significantly less. That was me, Brie. I was like, I feel like someone just told me I have a terminal disease.
We gotta get the fuck out. That's what I heard. We gotta go.
Yeah, I was literally like, this is literally the sunken place.
We gotta take
this is literally the sunken place. And they
message.
This is the whole sunken place. Like, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't think it could be any clearer than that I need to leave. And she was talking about, I think it was Barbara Christian and other like Black women theorists who we cite up, down, and center for Black feminism and Black literary criticism, who have died from aggressive cancers. And it was like, why do you think all these Black women are dying from aggressive diseases? And for Christian, I think it was, she was talking about how her work, which was like Black feminist theory, how when she was seeing how it wasn't taking off, like it wasn't being cited, but when she was seeing it being compromised through like practically like through the treatment of Black women and Black people, that it hurt her so much that it compromised her health. And I'm like, I mean, in so much as microaggressions absolutely affect her health, I'm sure that's true. But definitely this academy will take your last out of your hungry mouth and then roll on over you. And when you die, she was so nice. Her impact will not be forgotten. You've already reassigned all her classes. And you'll do it in the name of efficiency and institution. But the reality is that's just how much you care or don't care about Black women's, Black professors' offerings to the academy, because it's an extractive system of labor. It just is. And it's like a parasite. It'll take the last of you. And so I just wanted to like highlight that in green, because that just reminded me of that article, which like really shook me still today. Like, I will never forget the issue is survival of salvation. That's all. That's the end of my TED talk on Black women surviving in the academy. Ashley, back to you.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that up. Snaps all around.
A small interjection. Take a nap. The nap ministry was created by a Black woman, and she said that we need to rest. And the person who reminded me on rest all the time is Elliott James. There you go, Ashley.
So, I mean, Shay started us off, you know, in a very important spot. Like, if you feel invisible, it's time to walk yourself out the door. There's no point in staying. I think from my personal experience, I have walked away even from within the organization, groups that I'm a part of within the larger organization, I have walked away from because of either I feel like people testing me or trying to push or trying to run me out. And it's like, you know what, I'm just going to leave on my own accord because I don't have the time to deal with the unnecessary combative behavior. Like, I had an instance where I was helping run this group that focused on, you know, pulling all of the members of the organization that were part of the LGBTQIA plus community. Like we, you know, kind of like a support group. And I helped found the group. And this year I was told that I was not pulling my weight for the group. Now, keep in mind, I helped found the group. A month later, COVID happened. We weren't going to meet. There was, first of all, it was too stressful. Nobody was meeting. People were barely working at that point. So we weren't doing anything for about 6 or 8 months. We come back. I have an extensive workload. I always have had a pretty hefty workload. I say that I'm taking a step back because I have a lot on my plate and I will be back in a couple of months. If you need anything in the meantime, let me know. I come back, I step back into my role, and then it was co-leadership is not working for me anymore. And it was, you know, I don't want to work with you. You don't pull your weight. There's not enough work. We're not compatible, because at that point I thought we were on Tinder or Match because we weren't compatible. That's what I was told. We weren't compatible. So I thought maybe, you know, we were trying to match on Tinder or Hinge or Bumble, whatever at that point. I think in circumstances like that, I am quicker to be like, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm going to let you have it. And when it falls and it burns, you're going to be the one that's attached to it. I'm not putting my name on something like that. The only way that I think I'm different, like I just stepped into a new role where my decisions are very key to the collection. I make the final decisions as it applies to the collection. That has put me kind of, and it's not, I don't want to say it's a stressful situation, but it's put me in a position where I think I have people trying to test and see what cracks and crevices there are to see if they can kind of push. And it's interesting because I'm the one that says yes or no. And when my no is no, that means my no is final. That's it. There is nothing after that. When I say no, no means no. And I've had some pushing on that. And it almost feels like, because I don't know if one of y'all made the comment or somebody made the comment in the chat about people who will also try to antagonize you to push you out themselves. You know what I'm saying? Because the way that I got the position was not by me applying. I was offered the position. And I know that did not make people happy. People were not happy about that decision. So now me coming into the role, it feels like I have people like, okay, well, let's see how much we can push and prod and push and prod and push and prod and push and prod and stress her out as much as possible. You know, because we don't feel like you should have gotten this opportunity, or we don't feel like you're qualified to have this opportunity. So in that situation, in this specific situation, I feel like I don't think I'm necessarily invisible, but I'm demanding for people to respect where I'm at right now, because I've worked hard for it. I have the educational background for it, and I've put in my time for it. So the pushing and the prodding, I had one instance where I made a decision and someone tried to push back on the decision, but went to someone else and was like, oh, but you could just do this because it's just this. It just costs this amount. You can do this. So then it came back to me, and my answer was still, no, it's not happening. And if you don't want to communicate it to this person that my answer is no, I will send them an email and I will continuously tell them my answer is no. When my no means no, because that is my position to tell you no, that doesn't mean that you go to someone else and ask them around me as if they get to make the decision when it's my position now to say yes or no. So it's interesting because I don't know if it's not invisible per se, but it's fighting that you're not adequate. You're not supposed to be here. And I don't feel like I need to answer to you, even though I know that at the end of the day, I should be answering to you, or I should respect the decisions that you make. And then it's tricky because I feel like as a Black woman, I have to be mindful of how I carry myself. Even my tone in an email has to be so passive, because if I say the wrong thing, then somebody's going to be like, look at what she said. I'm taking this to HR and I'm making a complaint. And I just don't, and it can be stressful. And that's why I agree with y'all when it's like, when things get too bad, it's time to make an exit, because it's not worth your mental health or your physical health at that. Like, since I started this position, I have gotten back into therapy. Because if I'm not going to therapy every 2 weeks, I wouldn't be able to handle the mental stress that comes with people challenging your position of authority, which is, it's unfortunate, but it still happens. It happens in a lot of ways.
I was actually gonna like piggyback off of that, specifically what Ashley was saying about being a Black woman. I feel like one of the hardest parts is when people put you in a position where you're under another woman, and then you have to still advocate for yourself. And the conversation is like, but why would you? They're a woman. Like, they wouldn't do this. Like, that, having to explain that we exist in two different spaces and we navigate them differently is such a frustrating thing to deal with that I've seen. Like, in every situation that I've had in workplaces, the aggressor has always been a Caucasian woman. Every single one of them. Every single one of them, it has been that situation, and it has been me trying to like explain how this is an aggression or how this is an issue because they're a woman. So like, it's so hard for people to accept. Just like sometimes when I've been in positions where I've had to complain about another Black person above me because, well, they're Black. They would never do this. Or why would you be complaining about this? Well, because white supremacy is very pervasive, and all of us have different things in our lives that we have to conquer that deal with white supremacy. So yes, you could be Black and you could still be pushing anti-Blackness on me because that's who you are and that's how you were raised. And even having that conversation with people is like a mind-blowing thing. And so like just to piggyback off of what Ashley was saying, like just that extra layer of having to deal with things. Like, I remember calling my mentor my first week of being in my career, crying because I grew up really poor, y'all. And so the idea of going to lunch with my coworkers and spending $30 every day to eat lunch with them made no sense to me. But I knew that part of growing in a company is who you make connections with and who you spend time with. So I couldn't just not go to lunch with them Monday through Friday and sit at home with sit at the desk with what I made. So then my mentor was like, no, I went through this. Okay, Cache, what you need to do is pick one day out of the week. One day that you'll go with them. You make that a part of your budget, a part of like socializing in your career, but don't let them make you feel like you have to do these things. Because again, you're not going to go drink with them. Why? Because you're not going to feel safe. You're not going to feel like that's a good thing. You're going to be on your guard the entire time. So think of it as another part of your job and work of it in that way. But my colleagues didn't have that same issue.
Nope.
They weren't used to having to budget their food. Like 7 out of the 10 people's parents still pay some bill for them. Y'all, I haven't had a parent pay my bill since I was 16. So I don't know what that was like. Mm-hmm. Right? So just even knowing that we exist in different lanes and we live different things is that extra layer of having to be in those spaces. That's why my first thing was like, hey, y'all, if you feel invisible, if it don't feel good, leave. Because you're going to have to deal with that on top of all the other layers of being Black in that workspace. It's not a good look. It's not good for you.
I just want to piggyback on that. I feel like invisible. Oh my God. I'm like trying to say this in like the most not offensive way. And sometimes you got to speak your truth. Okay, Band-Aid off. I just really feel like it's difficult when I'm working with non-Black POCs because
preach.
Stress is so real. You go into thinking like kinfolk, and then you realize it's skinfolk. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm throwing out? So, like, I had a person who was the office administrator, who worked for this program I was in, and every time I would ask her to do something, that's literally like a part of her job. She would CC my supervisors to make sure that that is what she was supposed to do. When it's literally in your job description to print off paper for an event. So you telling me you gang banging on printing? That's what you telling me?
You did not just say gang banging on printing.
You gang banging on ink? Really? Like, it's just every time it was it was anti-blackness because it was only me, the only black person in the thing that she had issues with doing something with. Or it's the invisibility that comes with email violence. I said it. Somebody had to say it. When somebody emails you, usually it's a white woman, to go off of Shay, emails me something, and I'll be like, do I give you professional Bree? Do I give you hood Bree? Do I give you on site Bree? Like, what Bree do I give you? Because you have to constantly play this mental gymnastics with yourself on what part of yourself that's not going to get you fired because you got bills to pay. So then you hit them with, okay, Sandra, per my last email, ICC. Why do I have to gang bang via the end? Why I got a CC gang bang, BBC gang bang? I'm out here just doing all of this work for you.
I'm the queen of a blind copy. I'm a queen of a blind copy.
I'll blind copy somebody real quick.
Get reckless with me if you want to, because I'm blind copying HR and everybody else on it. Like, no. Once I learned what the B meant, I started using it explicitly.
Yep.
Or the thing that gets me is like the invisibility of your position, right? Not only just you being a black person and working, but where you're at in the food chain. It's like nobody can listen to you unless you CC some white person who's the head of whatever the fuck. And it's just like, goddamn, I'm just needing this one thing to happen. Like, gee, why do I have to go walk the red mile, part the seas like Moses, just for this one thing to happen? Jesus. And I'm pissed. And I'm allowed to be pissed just like white women. So I'm pissed right now. I'm pissed.
They're angry all the time. About nothing.
Can I just, since we just truth telling, I'm sorry, Professor, I'm going to take 10 seconds. And Shay has said some version of this before about something different, but I really feel like sometimes the women of the Wahite tribe use anger as social capital. You want to be angry about something political so that when you speak, when I should be speaking, it seems legit, even if what you're speaking about is something that you have perpetrated against me. But because it can also apply to you, whether or not it has, and sometimes it has, right? Because like these things are not clean, like, oh, if you perpetrate it, it hasn't been perpetrated against you. We all up in this thing. Like the water is dirty, we all fish. But I still feel like, I'm just, my experience, some women of the Wahite tribe definitely be using anger as social capital to make their soapbox a little bit higher so their voice can go farther, because already their voice is amplified, right? But now we're seeing people say, well, step back, share the space, use your platform. And so in order to protect their platform from having to share it with people who should be speaking on certain issues, oh, well, I experience certain things too, and I've had this and the third, and so that's when the anger becomes a resource for them in a way that it is more difficult to convert into a resource for Black women, because if we're angry, you're an angry Black person, and that works against you. And even if we are trying to be radical with our anger, like Audre Lorde talks about, we can think of it as radical in our head. We can be productive with it in our head, and that is still, like we said, on campus. You can find a place of Black joy and retreat that is not going to stop it from being under attack. You can find a way to render your anger a resource that is not going to stop it from being misread and I almost said it in other words, not what I meant, from being misread and misrepresented in a way that comes back upon you. So it's almost like your anger is is a double-edged sword. And whenever our own emotions have the ability to hurt us, there's going to be a complicated relationship to expressing it. So then we internalize, then we hold in, then we have these mental health issues. So then it all just comes back. All of this, women of the Wahite tribe are not having to think about when you use your anger as a resource. Like, then it's just all good. But if I try to do that, and we have Black women thinkers who have been talking about this way before. We've been thinking about anger as a resource. It's just taken us decades to be able to perfect how it's done, and we're still working on it, right? So that just to add that to the discussion. But go ahead, Professor.
There's nothing more to be said after that. What this tells me is that HR departments need to create space for, Black women's rage. And in preschool and elementary school, Black girls need to be able to be angry. It's kind of like the entire lifespan of Black girl womanhood is pathologized. And, it's like anger is an emotion. It's like, can we please have an emotion? I don't know. But I want to see a HR be like, here is a space for your rage, be angry. I want to know what that looks like. Because as Britt was saying, it's been written about and theorized, but in the workplace, we still don't see it. So where is that space?
So you, Professor James, you brought up something that has been something that I've been digging into research-wise. So all of us who have worked have probably heard about like how unions are bad and that like unions aren't things. But in my research of what I've been doing into like Black entrepreneurship and whatnot, unions are what got Black people rights in workplaces. And if they were so bad, why do police officers have them? Because police officers having them is what keeps them from being able to get arrested and being put on paid, unpaid duty and whatnot, right? So for some reason, they work for somebody, right? Because what we have to remember is that HR works for the company. So no matter what HR does, their bottom line is to make sure that company is still in the good with whatever they do. And so for me, all I'm thinking about when I heard you was like, no, we need more Black worker unions in us in our different fields, because with those, you do gain power. But somehow capitalism, y'all know how I feel about capitalism, has gotten us to believe that unions are a problem for the employees when really they're the problem for the employers, because they require you to hold to a standard for the people that work for you. Again, if they were so bad, why are there police unions all over this country?
Not you just dropped the mic.
Right.
That mute was a drop the mic.
Right. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful night. All right. Well, then when you talk about police officers, people get quiet. Now?
That's church mice.
Third question. Just trying to get to the questions. We're at an hour and 33 minutes. Not me losing the questions. Okay, there we go. How can a Black person make headway to become tenured? Me and Ashley out.
I can go. I can say something a little bit. Okay, so I've been trying to get on this kick, but it's really, really hard to do it. And I think I don't know who said it. Oh no, it was oh my gosh, who said it? About saying no. I think practicing saying no is like huge. And the reason why I say practice saying no instead of saying no is because you can say no or you can practice. You say no all the time, a lot of times, so you can say yes. Like for instance, I don't usually do meetings after 7 p.m. That's just not my thing, but I will do it for Bree. And part of the reason is over the last 3 years, I've said no to so many 7 p.m. meetings that my 7 p.m. is open. I can use it for that time. And it's very, very, very hard. And this is a predicament that a lot of faculty of color I know are in, is the fact that you want to say yes to really important things. Because there's so many important things that need yeses, so many people that need a yes. But if you're always saying yes, for others, you don't ever have time to say yes for yourself in a particular way. And what I've learned being at this institution is that the more, you have to have a million no's under your belt before that one no that you really needed that one day will work. So I really try to practice saying no to my family. That's just want to say about that. So the reason why I bring this up for this question, how can a Black person make headway to become tenured in academia? When you get tenure, that means that you are tethered to the institution. You're in service to the institution. Right? So if you're constantly saying yes and you get tenured, that's what your tenure is based on. If you get tenure saying no, you know that the institution values you more than the labor they can take from you. And I don't know, I can't say that enough. I know it's really kind of rudimentary, like just super basic to just say practice saying no. But the more you practice saying no, the more your time frees up. And then your tenure case becomes more about you rather than what your service. And we know the baggage that the word service comes for Black folks, right? So say no, practice it. I'm still working on it because I say yes to a lot of things. Because there's a lot of people who need yeses, but practice saying no. That's how I say you make headway to becoming tenured in a way that's a sustainable tenureship, rather than being exhausted once you get that letter saying you got tenure, but it's hard. So that's what I have to say. That's what I have to say about that. How you make headway is by capping everything.
I want to say saying no is a practice, right? So definitely get into that practice. And I find that, and I don't know about other people on the call, but so I work with students, right? And or work for students. And a lot of my students that I interact with are brown. And being in this global pandemic, and also a lot of people in Indian country don't have access to COVID-19 testings and also vaccinations. So a lot of people are still dealing with the very real initial onsets of COVID-19, a lot of brown folks. And saying no to them is so difficult for me because they are going through so many problems that are intersectionally linked. And I try to be the biggest support for them, but it always, even though I'm supporting them, at what cost to myself, right? Because it's not like I'm not also, experiencing X, Y, and Z. So it makes saying no very difficult to me when I am visibly seeing students struggling. And as a therapist, hearing students struggling, walking them and helping them cope with everything that's going on in their lives. But I've tried this year, because I do a lot of programs. I usually do like one program a week. And I do other things too. I've decided to, similar to Elliot, but mine is 6:00. After 6, your girl's done. I am over it. So recently I got feedback that students were like, "Oh, we love your programs, but like, can you do them later?" And I'm like, I just listen to the feedback because it's feedback, because that's really where it's going to end there, because I can't keep making those exceptions and just constantly neglecting myself. Like, I matter just like my students matter. And if my mental health is not up to par, I am doing a shitty job as a therapist, and I do not want someone to be messed up, because I just feel like you want to be as ethically sound and like in your approaches when you are a therapist. And if I'm struggling, you struggling, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. It's just like, nah, the math ain't mathing. 2 + 2 is really 17. So I just be trying to figure out how to navigate saying no, even though you have to practice it. And even with your friends and your family, after 10, don't hit me up. You gonna get that the number you have dialed. You know what I mean? You gonna get something that ain't what you need. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel bad because I be like, damn, I'm not accessible. People can't just call me. But everybody don't deserve access to you, boo-boo. Everybody does not deserve access to you because you're visible and you there and you listen that one time at band camp. Fuck that. You matter. And focus on you. And that was my TED Talk.
Thank you for that TED Talk, Bree. That was hilarious and relatable and just all around true. If you would like to pass the collection plate, there is a dollar amount available to give on Dr. Bree's channel. You just let the spirit lead and quench not the spirit. All right. I'm just saying, the doors of the church are open, and so is the collection plate. Okay. That's all, in case you didn't know. So as far as the how do you get tenure, or how do you make headway in getting tenure, the answer would really depend on who asked the question. Like, if it was a Black woman or a white woman, the answers are different. Especially if you're a white man, the answer is completely different. The answer is just do your job and make the right friends, and it's fine. That's it. Like, go about your business. Tenure sort of just comes with the position. Stay on for 5 years. Don't mess up nothing hugely, and you'll be in the green real quick. But for a Black woman, I would say, and I think that what Elliot said, what Bree said is like, I would just add that in thinking about, for myself, where I want to be in the next 3 years. I'll be on the market in a year. And thinking about what positions I want and the possibility for growing in those positions, right? The reality is less than, either it's 5, I believe it's 3, less than 3% of Black female professors get tenure. So I think that, yes, this is the reality. And for me, then I had to learn not saying no to myself, but spending time with myself and then saying, like, what do you want? And not what do you want that like filtered through a white academic gaze, because then they'll say like, you know, if you want success broadly written, but you don't want success broadly written, you know exactly what you want. So rather than saying what would make the department look good, right, because they have a 100% placement rate of their PhDs getting certain jobs, right, that's nice for them, but like, let's not forget ever what you are to them, which is labor and statistics. So at the end of the day, you go off to check in with your own eggs and make sure that someone is minding your dreams, right? Your private garden to which no one else has access. But so in that private garden of dreams, what do I want? And I was very, very stressed when I was thinking about how to even get a job in academia, let alone how to get tenure, because that number is so low. And because I was already like, I don't like theory. I do not want to read Fred Moten. I don't want to meet Sylvia. I don't want to read Sylvia Winter. Don't at me. Everyone loves them right now. And you cool, rock with them. Not for me. Not for me. I don't have an aspiration to be proficient and literate in Black theory. Now, that's my department. That's what's required of me to a certain extent to get out of here. But like, I had to remember that wasn't my goal, because I'm seeing others in my department go to conferences and write papers and do all these different things. And I'm like, well, why am I not doing it? Because you don't want to. Like, you want to read books. That's why you're here. So do what you have to do to get that, but the rest of it, don't mind. And so for me, I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to be successful at an institution, right, or get tenure if I can't check this, and this box. But do I want tenure if it's going to, so like what Elliot said, how you get tenure is how you will keep it. If you get tenure from saying yes, if you get tenure from going to conferences, if you get tenure for pulling down grant money, if you get tenure for doing service to the university, if you get tenure for XXNX, you're going to be expected to keep that same energy. So then and also you may do all those things and never get it if it's the Black woman that asked this question. So like, also do that. And so for me, I had to just say, what is it that I want to do? Okay, well, I want to write, I want to read books, and I want to teach literature. Okay, well, none of those things have to end in tenure. And so I just experienced an unbelievable, like a silly amount of peace. I was like, is this all I had to do to be okay? Like, to retain my hair and to sleep through the night and to like not open my laptop to my dissertation and immediately start crying? Is this what I had to do? Just like to let go what people tell me I have to do after I leave here? You don't have to get tenure. Statistics say you're not going to get it anyway. So do what will make you happy, even if it doesn't result in tenure. I can still teach at a college, at a university, at a private or charter high school that I can afford to pay me for my PhD. I can still teach at those places. And if tenure is not my goal, then I can do whatever the heck I want. Right? Like, I can do whatever the heck I want. And also, I can start working on my book while I'm in grad school, my novel in grad school, even though my dissertation committee would call it a distraction. Well, listen, I'm not here for tenure. I'm here for that degree. And then I'll go and do what I want to do. So then it allows you to invest more broadly in your specific goals, as opposed to the prescribed measurements of success that your department gives you. Because we must never forget, no matter what the department, right? Even Africana, Black Studies programs exist within the university. They are still beholden to the university. And so even if you have Black faces telling you things, sometimes those Black faces are moving in radical ways, and sometimes those Black faces have given their bodies over to the choreography of institutionalization, and you have to be able to recognize that as well and decide whether you want to be their dance partner or whether you want to bust a move in another cipher. And so like choosing that will have a lot to do with whether you even want to care about this question anymore. Like, I would ask the person who asked this, rather than how do you make headway to become tenure, in the goals that you really want to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years, even in your career, do you need tenure to do it? And why do you want tenure? Tenure for what? Right? Like, why do you want tenure? Are there other ways for you to get it? Because that will free you up a huge amount. That is the end of my TED Talk.
And I'd like to follow up a little bit on that. So like, just as someone who's like talked to tenured professors, but also in the aspect of how does a Black person make headway in their career in general, the bottom line is the one thing you're going to have to do is pick your battles, period. There are going to be some things that you are going to be like, I'm going to die on this hill. And there are going to be some things where you choose not to. And that is the one thing that is equivalent from any Black person that got ahead in their career. They couldn't go off on everything that made them mad. They had to choose which ones to speak up about and which ones to say. Now, how you do that depends on you and where you are in the space that you occupy. But that is going to be something that no matter where you are, whether you're trying to be tenured, whether you're trying to be a COO, you're going to have to figure out which battles you're going to fight is the one thing. And then this is like a follow-up for what everybody has said. The number one thing that we have to realize as Black people moving through these spaces is we teach people how to treat us by what we allow to continue to happen. So back to the not saying no, back to the working all the late hours and putting all the time. Again, for them, once you start doing this, whenever you stop, it's a problem. It's never a problem when you're going above and beyond, but when you start doing only what you're required to do, because let's be honest, most of the time it's never that we go below what we're required to do. We just go back to what the bare minimum that we signed that contract for, right. And then all of a sudden it's a problem. Right. And so in this situation for question 3, I would just say, as you are trying to navigate however you want to get ahead, realize that whatever groundwork you are laying for how you deal with these people is how they're going to expect you to continue. They don't allow for you to have weak moments. They don't allow for you to need to take a step back. Those aren't things that are awarded to us in these spaces. We know there are so many different reasons for this, but because it's not there, I just encourage us to be proactive in realizing that and seeing that before we get ourselves into mental and physical health situations that it's hard to get back out of.
And that is a word. I feel like sometimes in institutions or in companies, the further you get up in the hierarchy of like whatever it is, there's just some kind of professional chucking and jiving that people expect us to do, which it's just, I don't want to say like it's beyond me or I don't understand it, because I do understand it, but I'm always wondering like at what cost. And I feel like the link that Britt sent us was the cost. Us dying earlier, us really physically getting these aggressive diseases and having all these other health issues. So it's just very difficult to navigate things like that. So our last question is similar to what we've already said. And I've been putting some things in the comments. I've been like putting some of people's things like this. Need to practice saying no. People take advantage of me because I say yes. It make me feel bad when I say no, especially my family. Yeah. And it's so easy for this to translate in your workplace, because a lot of us use some self-validation from saying yes. We feel like we're not worthy enough if we're not saying yes, or people won't love us and tend to us and be there for us and hold us if we don't say yes. We think it's like a crime against humanity if we say no, when it's literally you choosing yourself. You cannot be everything to every person, and every person cannot be one thing to you. That doesn't make sense. It won't work. So for universities or companies, libraries to, expect so much of us than our other, Waite tribe, is that what she said earlier? Members. It's just, caucasity at its finest. Do y'all have any like wrapping up comments you would like to say now that we're coming to the end? We have about 6 minutes left. Any questions to the other panel members or something? Oh, come on, Elliot. Come on through.
So I invited my class here. I haven't seen them say anything in the chat. I teach a course called Black Morris. And part of the reason why I teach Black Morris, why I created Black Morris, is because, and I think there can be a Black Columbus, there could be a Black wherever, because Black public history is everywhere. But I felt that there was a space in what I do have as part of the power and privilege that I have as a faculty member is I get to create classes that get to go on the books, so when students, prospective students, funders see that, that's a space that, we've occupied. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my students who's out there. I don't do stuff like this normally, so you're not going to see me doing anything like this again. And I just want to say, hey, thanks for coming out. I hope that you realize that, life has already begun. All the strategies that we are talking about can be put into place tomorrow. And it'll help you in the long run. So, I don't wait until you find your perfect job to, discuss, these things, start talking about it now. Practice, practice it doesn't make perfect, but it makes better.
I would say find your tribe. I know it's like a thing that people say, but legitimately, if you are having to navigate predominantly white spaces, you need to find spaces that are safe and that white people do not occupy. I don't care what anybody tells you, you need those, period. That's why so many of us, we talked about being at PWI, still having those safe spaces that even though they still had their issues, we still needed them. Because if I'm being honest, I don't think I could have survived at PWI with no Black people, period. I don't think I would have done that. I think having the Black people to discuss the things that I was going through, even in us being in different degrees and having different experiences, allowed for me to have just this little therapeutic moment once a week or every 2 weeks that I feel that when you're in your workplace, you don't have as easily as you had in college. And you don't realize it until you're in that workplace. Dang, I'm so used to at least having, our Afro M meetings once a week where I can at least sit back and chill and don't have to code switch for an hour and a half. You don't, in college, they don't impress upon you how much your job is your life and how much your job affects everything else that you do. So if you don't have that network, you don't have that place of escape, it is that much harder for you. So if there was anything that I would end with, it's try to find that. And even with COVID, having this opportunity, I'm not gonna lie, this is our 4th time doing When Black Women Speak. Every Monday night that we do it, I have a sense of peace when I go to bed. Even though we're talking about heavy things, even though we're talking about things that get us riled up and make us feel a lot of things, it's a sense of community with other Black people who I can talk about and we can understand things that gets me through to the next 2 weeks that we meet again. So even if it's virtually, seek it out would be my takeaway.
Okay. Yep. Just wanted to get the head nod real quick. I think if there's one thing that that I would say is continue to be unapologetically Black. It is difficult being in spaces where, it's predominantly white. It's never going to be easy. I mean, I've only been on this earth an X amount of years, and I don't think it's ever been easy to be in spaces like that. And quite frankly, I have a hard time believing that it will ever be easy. But the cost of changing yourself is pretty high as well. And I've had to learn that the hard way, not the highway. I don't want y'all. I'm not y'all thinking. I've had to learn that the hard way. And I think that trying to assimilate and trying to make yourself a part of a group that does not want you to be a part of that group is going to wear and tear on you more than anything. And it's going to be a challenge. It's hard because you're going to stand out and you're going to make people uncomfortable. But I think, like we've talked a lot about practicing, And I think it's important to practice being proud and confident in your Blackness and not being afraid of walking into a room and being like, I am Black. This is who I am. I'm not changing for anyone. But yeah, I would say that. And that's one thing that I have learned over the past several years is I will continue to be Black. I was born Black and I'm a die Black. So why in the time in which I'm living would I choose to be anything else but Black?
All I heard was about a week ago. And that's on what? Hit it. And Mary had a little lamb. Amen.
Amen. For final thoughts, I think that everything that's been said is really on period, I guess. That's just it. But if I had to, I think we've already said it all, but if I had to like reiterate one thing for you to like take home, or that like I have learned about Black professionalism, understanding that like I'm a graduate student, so there are also some Black professional hills I have yet to climb, and I'm deciding now what sort of posture I want to enter with. And I think that's what I would leave with. Like Black professionalism is strategy in large part. It's strategy and preparation, which is to say, yes, practice, but also for me, especially with COVID, right? Like I have gotten used to not having to deal with people face to face. I have gotten used to people not commenting on how my face makes them feel. I have gotten used to not having to worry about if a white student is going to write a paper on how my eyebrows moved when we were reading her problematic paper. That is a true story. I've gotten used to not having to do that. And so when I do have to go out, sometimes new anxiety overtakes me. So I'm like, oh, I'm going back into this space. I've almost forgotten how to cope with it, et cetera, et cetera. And I think now is a time it's always time for me to lean into faith, but now is the time to be mindful about how you're entering a room and mindful about how you are walking into the world every time you leave your house to pray, and for me to pray. So for me to pray and be like, God, take hold of me, right? Like, yes, walk me through these streets, but also like be master of my tongue, be master of my mind, guard me against unwanted thoughts, against spirits of distraction, give me a spirit of discernment, right? Like just move me and give me the faith to know that that nothing is coming against me, that you are not allowing to come against me, which means I've already been victorious over it, right? So I have to give myself a sermon before I leave the house so that when I meet someone on the way, I am prepared to rebuke you, right? Because I already have on the whole armor of faith. So I'm just like, I'm actually not clocking in to deal with you. I'm also not on this earth to deal with you in this way, right? So you just have to prepare yourself to say, if you find yourself, for me, if you find yourself being overtaken with anxieties, it's helpful for me to do a sort of like worst, best, better, or like bad, worst, the worstest sort of situation, and decide now how you're going to respond to those things that you're anxious about. And it sort of just removes the bottleneck of it going around in my mind. If someone says this, what are you going to do? And then you talk it out, you pray it out. And then when you go into the day, if nothing gets that bad, then you're like, oh, this is great. But if it does, you're like, I was waiting for you. My mama told me to tell you to mind your not really. But you're prepared with your response. So you're not as shaken by it. And I think that's what Black professionalism is. It's that strategy of how I'm going to respond, and that preparedness where you have that peace that when you're walking into something, I've already decided that I'm going to be at peace with it. That doesn't mean that everything's going to be good. I'm not going to have to respond, but I'm already at peace within myself.
Beautifully said, everyone. I got nothing to add because y'all nailed it. I think everybody can come off of the mute And I just want to give a shout out to Elliott James for coming on today.
Thanks for the invitation. Really, this was, I could not have imagined a better conversation or a group of folks. I'm gonna follow and like all your stuff when I get off of here. I wish I had a thing so you could do the same, but I don't. But
you're speaking in your truth. Elliot really just, I'm so happy that Elliot is on this campus with me, y'all. It's just like everything. So that's that. Thank you, Ashley, for coming on and dropping those gems. We appreciate you coming and letting us know what's really going on in the backstage of Library Science.
Yeah.
I want to thank Shay for always coming out of the box and then coming back in the box and dropping the gems and mute mic dropping. Okay. And I want to say, Britt, I want to also thank Britt for just inviting us to be a part of your sermon, because the way you speak, we over here like, amen, and that's on what. So thank y'all all for coming. Thank everybody in the comments for being here and for also speaking in the comments with each other, texting or writing. Also, thank you, Adrian, for donating $9.99 also to my ministry.
Amen.
And I'm real sad we didn't get to all the questions like this. This would have been good, but I also want to be mindful of everybody's time. And we all know Literary Lady One on the internet, so you can go and find, I think her name is connect with her and answering that question, or that could be a question we talk about on our Twitter. If you want to do that as well. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful
Hold on. No, ma'am. I
I
know you don't think that we're not going to say that Bree is an amazing host and moderator, and just amazingly thoughtful in facilitating discussion and hearing and seeing everyone on the screen and the comments is super attentive to just cultivating and curating a welcoming space for everyone that is and everyone that will come into contact with this video. That is not something that you can just wake up and do. Bree, I just always appreciate when I just seeing you on screen, because I know that you're going to be careful, you're going to be honest, you're going to be transparent, you're going to hold yourself and everyone on the screen to a certain standard of engagement, and that's a really precious trust to have. And so just thank you for being your thoughtful and your careful, your charismatic self. Absolutely appreciate.
I mean, if y'all insist.
Child, you know you a trip.
Right.
Oh, y'all know I feel uncomfortable with compliments. So I was like, okay, bye, y'all. See ya.
Everybody on the screen compliment.
Right.
Like, I dip. You know, I was trying to get up out of it. Anyway, y'all, thank y'all. Oh, Knox, you are sweet. You are sweet. I appreciate that. Anyway, we ain't gonna keep doing the black goodbye. I'll
Man.
see you later. I'm gonna end the broadcast. Maybe a minute or two debriefing with the host, and we will see y'all later. Bye. Next time.
Bye.